Projekt Guru.
Всем привет! С вами Zak Novak на радиостанции Novorossia Rocks. Welcome to Novorossia Rocks radio station. This is Zak Novak, your American in downtown Donetsk. The program is called Projekt Guru, and Guru is in the house as always. Andre Mangineer and special guest Natasha. Let's get right to it. War crimes as Ukraine Junta bombs civilian areas of Donetsk Republic. Nursing home hit. Genocide. Nazi Ukrainian forces last night shelled the Kiev and Petrovsky districts of Donetsk. There is destruction in residential areas, homes destroyed. A barrage of rocket fire was launched at civilian areas, settlements of Biruzova and Staromihailovka. Biruzova nursing home was hit, according to the representative of the Kiev district administration. According to the head of Petrovsky district, Maxim Zhukovsky, due to the result of night shelling by the Nazi Ukrainian military, 2 private homes were destroyed. Also, there was damage by light artillery in the streets of Karnavalnaya and also Maximilianovskaya. Direct hit damaged the roof of a home. Information on casualties. No injuries so far reported. It was earlier reported that the Nazi Ukrainian forces during the evening and early morning hours fired from 122mm artillery rounds in the residential neighborhoods of Yasinovate. Under fire was also the village of Sahanka in the south of the country and the village Zaitsevo under Golovka. Also, according to our law enforcement agencies of the Donetsk People's Republic, said on Tuesday that the Nazi Kiev forces had shelled the outskirts of an industrial area near Yasinovate from artillery weapons of 122mm caliber. Late on Tuesday and at midnight, the Nazi Ukrainian side shelled an industrial area from 122 weapons. In total, 43 artillery shells were fired from the occupied enemy's positions near Avdiivka. The Nazi Kiev forces also reportedly used mortars with the caliber of 82s and 120s, infantry combat vehicles, grenade launchers, and small arms fire. The village of Sahanka in the Republic's south and Zaitsevo near Golovka came under fire. The DPR Operative Command said earlier that the Nazi Ukrainian forces had shelled towns and areas of the Republic near the front lines in a total of 578 times over the past 24 hours. Genocide, war crimes by the Poroshenko regime. More madness as U.S. and Saudi coalition kill more civilians, 17 slaughtered by result of double tap. Why the madness? Why the targeting of civilians of Yemen? A constant barrage of airstrikes by the Obama regime together with the oil tycoons of Saudi Arabia have hardly targeted enemy combatants. What really is the plan here? What demonic plans has the fascist regime of the United States have for Yemen to do such horrific genocidal crimes? For the 3rd straight day, U.S.-Saudi Arabia warplanes are caught up in a high-profile incident of civilian deaths in Yemen, this time attacking a home in the Neom district near the capital of Sana'a. The attacks destroyed a house and killed 17 civilians. The large toll for a single home was the result of a double-tap incident, with the first strike collapsing the house on top of the family and relatives from the neighborhood scrambling to try to rescue them, only for the rescuers themselves to be targeted in subsequent airstrikes. This comes after a Sunday incident in which U.S.-Saudi coalition warplanes attacked a school, killing 10 children, and Monday incident in which they destroyed a Doctors Without Borders hospital, killing 15 more civilians. Throughout the war, the Saudis have been criticized for the huge civilian toll of their airstrikes, but the number of incidents seems to be growing dramatically in recent weeks. With the UN General Assembly last year agreeing the Saudis could investigate themselves on war crimes, the U.S.-Saudi coalition today announced they'll set up an investigation body to look into the recent strikes. Those Saudi officials, listen to this, Guru, Saudi officials have already praised the killing of the children at the school, accusing them of being terrorists in training. So far, Saudi officials have justified every single incident of civilian killings in Yemen, or insisted they didn't happen at all. Total madness. Our dear comrades of China getting involved in Syria militarily against the US-backed terrorists. China wants to have closer military ties with Syria. State media on Tuesday cited a senior Chinese officer as saying during a rare visit to the war-torn Middle Eastern country. Guan Yofei, director of the Office for International Military Cooperation of China's Central Military Commission, met Syrian Defense Minister Fahad Jassim al-Frey in Damascus. China's Shanwan State News Agency reported. Guan said China had consistently played a positive role in pushing for a political resolution in Syria. China and Syria's militaries have a traditionally friendly relationship, and China's military is willing to keep strengthening exchanges and cooperation with Syria's military. Both also talked about personal training and reached a consensus on the Chinese military providing humanitarian aid. Guan also met a Russian general in Damascus, the news agency said without giving details. While relying on the region for oil supplies, China tends to leave Middle Eastern diplomacy to other permanent members of the UN Security Council, namely the United States, Britain, France, and Russia. But China has been trying to get more involved, including sending envoys to help push for a diplomatic resolution to the violence there and hosting Syrian government and opposition figures. While China has shown no interest in getting involved militarily in Syria, China's special envoy for the crisis there in April praised Russia's military role in the war. China has its own security concerns about the violence in the region. China is worried that the Uyghurs, a mostly Muslim people from western China's Xinjiang region, have ended up in Syria and Iraq fighting for militant groups there, having traveled illegally via Southeast Asia and Turkey. Vice President Biden offers condolences for the slaughter of Serbian civilians by US-Led NATO bombings. During a visit to Belgrade today, Vice President Joe Biden offered condolences for the Serbian civilians killed in the 1999 US-Led NATO bombings of Serbia, a war which resulted in the US-backed secession of Kosovo from Serbia. 17 years after the campaign, Biden's visit was aimed at getting Serbia to normalize relations with Kosovo and marks the first time a high-ranking US official has made any offer of condolences for the substantial civilian death caused in the air war. Though the exact figure remains hotly disputed, Human Rights Watch reported 90 confirmed incidents of civilian deaths amounting to between 489 to 528 Serbian civilians. 3 Chinese journalists were also killed in the U.S. bombing of the Chinese embassy in Belgrade. There were also huge numbers of people wounded in the bombing campaign, with estimates in excess of 10,000. Yugoslav officials claim the death toll was far higher than the confirmed toll from HRW, putting the figure in excess of 1,200. NATO insisted all the killings were legitimate. Guru, listen to this. NATO insisted that all the killings were legitimate and that it was necessary, this according to the terrorist organization NATO, to defeat a supposedly great evil, and that the cost of not killing the civilians would have been far higher. Biden's move comes just a year after NATO's fascist Secretary General visited Belgrade and similarly expressed regret about the civilians killed, though like Biden comments, this was far short of an apology, and fascist Stoltenberg defended the war as a success. The civilian death toll has remained a source of tension between the terrorist organization NATO and Serbia, along with the continuing tension along the Serbia-Kosovo frontier. The secession of Kosovo left a substantial Serbian population inside North Kosovo, which the Kosovo government has persecuted and prevented from moving freely along the border with Serbia. This war has played a big role in keeping Serbia neutral at a time when the rest of the region has been scrambling to join NATO. Polls have regularly shown very little interest among Serbians in joining NATO, and this might be driving the sudden interest among officials toward a rapprochement. Russian warplanes launch airstrikes against US-backed terrorists from Iran. Israel objects. In a first for their war in Syria, Russian warplanes today launched airstrikes against Syrian rebels, terrorists, backed by the Obama administration, using warplanes launched from the Hamadan air base west of the capital city of Tehran. Previously, all Russian strikes in the war were launched from either Syrian territory itself or from Russia. Israeli officials warned that the move has negative implications for their interests in the long term, and indeed it would be a lot harder for Israel to follow through on long-standing threats to attack Iran if they're playing host to the Russian Air Force. The planes involved were Tupolev 22 M3 long-range bombers and Sukhoi's 34 fighter bombers. It is unclear how long Russian planes have been at the Iranian air base. Iranian officials confirmed today that the Russian and Iranian personnel will share the facility. U.S. and Israeli officials, however, say that they knew in advance that Iran was to allow Russia the use of the base. The Tupolev bombers could not operate out of Russia bases in Latakia, Syria, which are too small to host them, and this gives them another option. The State Department declined to get into details about the matter, but terms the Russian deployment unfortunate. The U.S., of course, has been launching airstrikes against Syria from third-party countries throughout the war, with a substantial base in Turkey. Crimean Tatars opposed to Crimea's return to fascist Ukraine. Almost half of Crimean Tatars, about 46%, are opposed to Crimea's return to fascist Ukraine, whereas just 17% of them are pinning their hopes on Kiev, according to Igor Barinov, the head of Russia's Federal Agency for Nationality Affairs. During the 23 years the peninsula was part of Ukraine, none of the issues on repressed ethnicities, the Crimean Tatars, Armenians, and Greeks, had been resolved. Russia, on the other hand, has already done a lot, Barinov noted. He emphasized that the legislation on rehabilitating repressed peoples has been passed. More to the point, the Crimean Tatar language is officially one of the 3 state languages in Crimea, and Eid al-Fitr has become a holiday across the republic. Furthermore, mosques, homes, daycare centers, and power engineering facilities are under construction, while cultural heritage sites are being renovated. For example, work has begun in restoring the Khan's Palace in Bakhchisarai. Barinov recalled that about 17% of Crimean Tatars voted in the referendum on Crimea's reunification with Russia in 2014. They were cautious about this move back then, he indicated. Now the situation has changed, as 46% of the Crimean Tatars do not want Crimea's return to fascist Ukraine, and just 17% are pinning their hopes on Ukraine. I am confident that the peninsula's energy blockade and foiled terror plot will alienate Crimean Tatars from official Kiev and Medjeli's leaders once and for all, Barinov declared. Even now, Crimean Prime Minister Sergei Aksyonov is the most popular regional political figure among Crimean Tatars, while Vladimir Putin is the most prominent national one. Hey everyone, thanks again for supporting Novorossia Rocks radio station, supporting Projekt Guru. Listen, as I stress always, be safe out there, stay on alert, and see you all on Friday. Bye-bye, folks.